Why you never leave the Mafia alive. There are many reasons why leaving the Mafia is usually a death sentence. The Mafia is a criminal organization that is bound by a code of silence known as Omerta. Members of the Mafia are expected to be loyal to their fellow members and to keep their criminal activities secret. This code of silence makes it difficult for outsiders to understand the inner workings of the Mafia, but it also creates a dangerous environment for those who want to leave. One of the main reasons why you never leave the Mafia alive is because it's nearly impossible to escape its clutches once you have joined. When you join the Mafia, you are taking a huge risk. You are essentially choosing to live a life of crime, and there is no turning back. If you decide to leave, you will be seen as a traitor, and your fellow members will want to kill you. It's simply that serious. The Mafia is a highly secretive organization, and its members are constantly on the lookout for moles. If they suspect that one of their own is working with the police or other authorities, they will take swift and brutal action to eliminate the threat. This means that if you are in the Mafia and you try to leave, you will need to be extremely careful. You can't just up and leave without making any preparations. You need to have a solid plan in place, and you need to be willing to do whatever it takes to protect yourself. Leaving the Mafia is not easy. It's a difficult decision that should not be taken lightly. If you are in the Mafia and you want to leave, you need to be prepared for the consequences. You may have to put your life on the line, but it may be worth it in the end. When you join the Mafia, you are making a commitment to a way of life. You're committing yourself to a world of crime and violence. And once you make that commitment, it is very difficult to escape. The Mafia is a powerful organization with deep roots in society. It has a strong hold on its members, and it is very hard to break free from its grasp. The Mafia is a criminal organization that is based on loyalty, trust, and secrecy. Members of the Mafia are expected to be loyal to their fellow members and to keep their criminal activities secret. This means that when you join the Mafia, you are cutting yourself off from the outside world. You're severing ties with your friends and family, and you are committing yourself to a life of crime. Leaving the Mafia is often seen as a betrayal, and this is not something that is taken lightly. In fact, it is usually met with violence. If you decide to leave the Mafia, you should be prepared for the worst. Your fellow members will see you as a traitor, and they will want to punish you for your betrayal. This means that you may have to fight for your life if you try to leave the Mafia. It's important to remember that the Mafia is a dangerous organization. Its members are criminals who are willing to do anything to protect their way of life. They are ruthless and violent, and they will not hesitate to use force to achieve their goals. This means that if you try to leave the Mafia, you may be putting your life in danger. Despite the dangers involved, some people do manage to leave the Mafia. It is possible to break free from its grasp, but it is not easy. If you decide to leave the Mafia, you need to be prepared for a long and difficult struggle. You need to be willing to put your life on the line to protect yourself and your loved ones. If you're thinking about leaving the Mafia, you need to carefully weigh the risks and benefits. It is a difficult decision that should not be taken lightly. Leaving the Mafia is not an option for most people. It is a dangerous and risky endeavor that should only be attempted by those who are truly prepared for the consequences. So why don't people leave the Mafia? Well, it all comes down to the code of silence known as. This code of silence is what allows the Mafia to operate with impunity. It is what allows them to commit crimes and get away with it. When you join the Mafia, you are expected to keep secrets. You are not allowed to talk to the police or any other authorities about what goes on in the Mafia. You are also not allowed to talk to anyone outside of the Mafia about what goes on inside the organization. This means that if you try to leave the Mafia, you will be taking secrets with you, and this could put you in danger. The Mafia is a highly secretive organization, and its members are constantly on the lookout for moles. If they suspect that one of their own is working with the police or other authorities, they will take swift and brutal action to eliminate the threat. This means that if you are in the Mafia and you try to leave, you will need to be extremely careful. You can't just up and leave without making any preparations. You need to have a solid plan in place, and you need to be willing to do whatever it takes to protect yourself. In addition to the danger that you will face from your fellow Mafia members, you will also have to deal with the trauma of your experience. Being in the Mafia is not an easy thing to deal with. You are constantly living in fear of your life. You are surrounded by violence, and you are forced to participate in illegal activities. This can take a toll on your mental health. If you do manage to leave the Mafia, you will need to find a way to cope with the trauma of your experience. You may need to seek professional help to deal with the emotional and psychological scars that being in the Mafia has left you with. The Mafia is a dangerous and secretive criminal organization that is bound by a code of silence known as when you join the Mafia, you are taking a huge risk. You are essentially choosing to live a life of crime, and there is no turning back. If you decide to leave, you will be seen as a traitor and your fellow members will want to kill you. If you want to leave the Mafia, you need to be prepared for the consequences. You may have to put your life on the line, but it may be worth it in the end. Can you really leave the Mafia? The answer to this question is both yes and no. Yes, it is possible to leave the Mafia, but it is extremely difficult and dangerous. In fact, most people who try to leave the Mafia end up getting killed. However, there are a few cases of people who have successfully left the Mafia. One of the most famous cases is that of Michael Francisi. Francisi was a Mafia hitman who decided to leave the Mafia in order to protect his family. He was one of the few people who managed to leave the Mafia alive. Another case is that of Joseph Barbera. Barbera was a Mafia boss who decided to leave the Mafia in order to avoid going to prison. He was also one of the few people who managed to leave the Mafia alive. As you can see, it is possible to leave the Mafia alive, but it is extremely rare. It takes a lot of courage and determination to leave the Mafia, but it can be done. Now, assuming that you did decide to leave the Mafia, how would you do it? Well, the first step is to make sure that you have a solid plan in place. You can't just leave the Mafia without making any preparations. You need to know exactly what you are going to do and how you are going to do it. You need to be prepared for every possible scenario. The next step is to make sure that you have the support of your loved ones. Leaving the Mafia is not an easy decision, and you need to have the support of your friends and family in order to make it work. They need to understand the risks that you are taking, and they need to be willing to support you through the difficult times. The third step is to make sure that you have the resources necessary to leave the Mafia. This means having enough money to support yourself and your family, as well as having access to good lawyers and other professionals who can help you navigate the legal system. The fourth step is to actually carry out your plan. This is the most dangerous part of leaving the Mafia, as you will be leaving the Mafia alone. You need to be prepared for anything. You need to be willing to fight for your life if necessary. The final step is to start your new life. This is not going to be easy, as you will be starting over from scratch. But with hard work and determination, you can make a new life for yourself. In conclusion, it is possible to leave the Mafia alive, but it is extremely difficult and dangerous. It takes a lot of courage and determination to do it, but it can be done. Just remember to make a plan, get support from loved ones, get the necessary resources, carry out your plan, and start your new life. Good luck. If you want to learn more about the Mafia, check out our other videos on the subject. We have a lot of great content that you will enjoy. Thanks for watching.